Today we're going to talk about why you didn't see Caleb Kelly against Iowa State and all that's coming up after the bumper.
What do you mean you don't subscribe to my son's YouTube channel?
Mama, no!
Just snap the damn ball, RJ.
What's up, kid folk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill, considering the like and subscribe button because I upload a video every single day. It's always OU related, college football related, sports related. We have a good time. So we're going to talk about five-star linebacker Caleb Kelly and why you didn't see him against Iowa State. But first, I want to talk about Baker and Cleveland. Now, for those of you who have been following the Cleveland Browns this year, which is a lot of OU fans who are just joining up with the Cleveland Browns, we're beginning to experience the way Cleveland does things. And apparently the way Cleveland does things is tying games, which aren't losses, and then they're trying to tell us that those are wins because they didn't lose. I went to the University of Oklahoma. I'm here for W's. But then the next week against New Orleans, you had a chance to win the game, and then kickers. Zane Gonzalez missed two crucial field goals, one of which could have given Cleveland the lead against New Orleans. The other could have won the game for them. Now, as soon as the game ended, I tweeted, kickers have one job. And then folks tried to hit me with the Austin Seibert. Austin Seibert is a kicker. He's got one job. His one job is to kick the ball where it's supposed to go. Whether that's punting, through the uprights, or through the back of the end zone, kickers have one job. But I also said Cleveland is going to be looking for a new kicker at the beginning of the week. And by noon on Monday, Cleveland had a new kicker. Dan Bailey was off the board, though. He was in Minnesota. We all wanted him to get up there, knowing what kind of kicker Dan Bailey was for Dallas. Never mind that Dan Bailey went to that school that claims a 1945 national championship that isn't theirs. But now that the Cleveland Browns are 0-1-1, which is just a really odd record if you're not playing in the English Premier League, we're having more calls for Baker Mayfield needs to be the guy for Hugh Jackson going forward with the Cleveland Browns, especially since they just decided to trade Josh Gordon because, depending on who you believe, Josh Gordon was late to meetings, he was tardy on Saturday, he's relapsed with a drinking problem, but then come to find out, Bill Belichick said we'll trade for him, then gave up some late round picks, so now Tom Brady and Josh Gordon are on the same team, and the only thing that's likely to stop Tom Brady and Josh Gordon is Jesus and his righteousness. I hear folks saying that the Pats don't look like the Pats of old, but I heard folks say that last year when Kansas City stopped the mud hole in the Patriots, and the Patriots ended up in the Super Bowl last year. Plus, nobody cheats as well as the Patriots. If anybody can get Josh Gordon on task, it is Bill Belichick. And then adding insult to injury and rounding out this story about Cleveland, Bill Belichick had picked up Corey Coleman off the scrap heap, and then Josh Gordon became available, and they cut Corey Coleman so they can make room for Josh Gordon. Corey Coleman, my goodness, what have you been doing with the last 2 months of your life? Just karma, taking a chunk out of you. But as far as Baker Mayfield becoming the guy in Cleveland, I want you to all look at Pat Mahomes. And I want you to look at Pat Mahomes for two reasons. Number one, Pat Mahomes' QB rating is 143. He's thrown for 10 touchdowns and 582 yards through 2 games for Andy Reid and the Kansas City Chiefs. The other reason is you're familiar with what Pat Mahomes can do. You saw what he did at Texas Tech. We all know about the 734 yards he dropped on Oklahoma and Mike Stoops' defense. But my point is, Pat Mahomes' scheme at Texas Tech isn't a whole lot dissimilar from Lincoln Riley's scheme at Oklahoma. And Baker Mayfield is a better quarterback than Pat Mahomes. We know this from the hardware. We also know this from the eye test. And the other reason I'm telling you to look at Pat Mahomes is Pat Mahomes sat last year behind a capable starter. And head coach Andy Reid went on record as saying, look, if Alex Smith did not teach Pat Mahomes how to be a quarterback in this league, Pat Mahomes would not be the guy he is today. And he credited Alex Smith for being a pro about it, for being open with Pat Mahomes about what's going on and how to do his job for the Kansas City Chiefs. And then you could say that Alex Smith got cut, but really he just got paid when he went to Washington and everybody came out whole. I think you're going to see a similar thing with Cleveland if you just leave it alone. There are lots of people to point to say, yo, let that guy sit on the bench for an entire year and then put him in and watch him go to work. Pat Mahomes is the latest example of this, but more than that, I don't think that Tyrod Taylor has had the kind of performance where you can just say, we got to sit him now and we got to go with Baker. It ain't a Nathan Peterman thing like it is in Buffalo, which is another different kind of dumpster fire. Now, yes, Tyrod Taylor has thrown just 2 TDs and thrown 2 picks, and his completion percentage is like 52%, which is terrible. But it's also under his career percentage of 62%, which for me says that Tyrod Taylor's going to get it figured out. But more than that, his offensive line is garbage. You don't want Baker playing behind that offensive line. Tyrod Taylor's been sacked 10 times in 2 games. Why do you want to go get Baker hurt? And for what? So that Cleveland could maybe make the playoffs and then what? No. Let Cleveland use the draft picks that they're stockpiling to go get Baker some more weapons, to get him a better offensive line, and then put him out there in 2019. However, the likelihood of that happening, I think, is slim. I think Hugh Jackson is going to cave, and he's going to put Baker in sooner rather than later. Now, on the subject of Oklahoma football, I thought the most interesting thing that Lincoln Riley's had to say outside of what's going on with Caleb Kelly is that if you play defensive back at Oklahoma and you don't tackle, you won't play. So obviously he watched the same game that you and I watched against Iowa State where there were missed tackles all over the field. Now that said, Pro Football Focus actually graded out pretty well for Khalil Houghton and then Justin Broyles. And there was a fun stat in the OU game notes where Justin Broyles' 10 tackles were the most by a defensive back since Tony Jefferson in 2010. That's a long time, bro. That's a bad look if you're Oklahoma, but it's a good look if you're Justin Broyles. But also, I was thinking about this out loud. If you're saying that you can't play if you don't tackle for the defensive backs, you're really getting rid of everybody who played defensive back against Iowa State. That's Trey Norwood, that's Parnell Motley, that's Brendan Buki Radley-Hiles, that's Khalil Houghton, and even at times, that's Justin Broyles. So I'm going to be particularly interested to see what this looks like against Army, where all you're really going to have is defensive backs who are running downhill and playing man, and your linebackers are going to have to be hitters. Kenneth Murray Jr., Curtis Bolton, Mark Jackson have done a job as linebackers. They've been outstanding on defense, and I would love to see some more Ryan Jones here. But now we got to pivot to, we didn't see any Caleb Kelly against Iowa State. And the reason Lincoln Riley said we didn't see any Caleb Kelly was because they're thinking about redshirting Caleb Kelly. Now, there's a lot of red flags here. The first one is Caleb Kelly has played football for Oklahoma before. He's been a 2-year starter. So the fact that you're having to redshirt a guy who was a former 5-star linebacker, a guy that you were planning to pencil in and start in the middle of your defense is a bad look for Caleb Kelly. Used to be that I just thought that this was Curtis Bolton is better, and he still might be better. That's still on the table. But what is going on with Caleb Kelly when you're thinking about redshirting him after the second game of the season? Now, I know there's a lot of people who are jumping off the Caleb Kelly bandwagon. They are dumping all of their stock, and I get that. I understand. A kid redshirting this late into his career screams transfer to me. But I also applauded Lincoln Riley for, number one, not going into detail about why they're thinking about redshirting Caleb Kelly, and also putting it on the player and saying, look, this is also his decision, because if he doesn't want to do it, there's no reason for me to push it on him, because that doesn't lead to good things for me, and that doesn't lead to good things for him. So I like hearing that from a coach like Lincoln Riley, a guy who could just say to Caleb Kelly, do what I tell you. But also, what are we doing with Caleb Kelly if Brian Mead is the next best option and you don't see any Levi Draper? I really kind of want to know what's going on to facilitate some of these decisions. And it's not so much because Brian Mead can't play linebacker. Brian Mead was an outstanding prep player. As a matter of fact, Brian Mead is one of these old school Oklahoma football players who played quarterback and linebacker. This is a guy who threw for over 2,000 yards as a senior with 20 touchdowns and also had 171 tackles for Rejoice Christian. I understand that that ain't exactly big time football, but I don't think they're running people out there to play against Iowa State when Curtis Bolton goes down that they don't trust. And that you trust Brian Mead in this position in a way that you probably don't trust Caleb Kelly or Levi Draper is telling me something about the linebacking core, and it's something to watch going forward. Now, the last thing that I will add about Caleb Kelly is we know he's talented. We know the kid can absolutely play. We know that Sam linebacker is not necessarily the best place for him to play. We thought it was Will linebacker, but now you really have to evaluate what's the best position for Caleb Kelly to play, and I've been of the opinion that it ain't exactly linebacker. Caleb Kelly, to me, screams strong safety. He's got ball skills. He can tackle. He is a bigger kid. I liked having him and Ryan Jones basically play a strong safety position in a 4-2-5. But they don't really run that kind of scheme with Caleb Kelly at the Sam anymore. They run it with Ryan Jones, and it looks good when Ryan Jones is playing the Sam. So there's a lot of questions to be answered about, number one, what is good for Caleb Kelly? Number two, what is good for Oklahoma? And do those things come together for both of those parties? And we're going to find out in the coming weeks and months. All right, that's it for me. Deuces.